Now that you've seen a few processes and what goes into one of these, can you imagine what it takes to create an entirely new gun? This is the FTP 900, 99% new from its predecessor. It took literally thousands of hours to get it to this stage. Hundreds of processes, all of them had to be worked out. All of them interact with each other. And if any one of them fails, then the whole project fails. That is why these things cost so much money to produce. But when the result comes out like this, you can see why they bother. I'm in what amounts to the nerve centre of Air Arms. Here's where it all begins. I'm with Alan Dennis. He's the head of design and production. So Alan, they come to you with their ideas and you start the first phase of turning them into reality.
That's exactly how it happens.
Well, you've got some pretty fancy kit, I've got to say. That's what would that just be, a CAD program?
It's a 3D CAD program, yeah.
Well, you can do absolutely anything with that. I've seen you sectionalising stuff. You can look for pivot points and screw holes and thread engagement, all that sort of stuff.
Everything that you would do for any sort of mechanical.
And everything you make pretty much goes through that.
Everything goes through that, yes.
So how does it start? What happens? You have a meeting, you decide we're going to sort that trigger button out.
Yeah, it can be for any reason. It can be customer feedback, it can be a bit of downtime in the factory, want to make an improvement in some area, anything at all. And basically, as soon as the go is given, Alan and Claire say, this is what we want to do, comes down and away we go.
And because you sit literally next to the general manager,
yep,
young Alan George, then you've got immediate sort of, there's no delay.
No, there's no, we have fantastic discussions, and some would say heated discussions as to where we're going to go. We thrash something out between us, and once we've got a direction, away we go.
Yeah, I've been in on a couple of those discussions. You're fairly passionate people, you all are, and that's a good thing. Yeah. That's a great thing. But you do have the technology, don't you?
Yes, definitely we do.
Show us some of the things that can do.
Well, this is the trigger off of the 410. We decided at one point a little while back to change the safety button.
Yeah.
The safety button used to be a single piece which used to go through the centre of the trigger, so it used to go through the middle through there. It still does go through the middle through there, but what we've done now is during the assembly process it can't come out.
So this is just to improve the button, the safety button itself?
Just to improve the safety button operation, basically. It went from a single piece to a two piece.
And you've made it captive now?
And it's now completely encapsulated, so it can't move outside of that countable, whereas before it could. It's just a small improvement that makes the overall experience for the shooter better, makes it more secure, and is, we think, a design improvement.
Well, you may or may not know this, but I've discussed the cost of this with your general manager, and I won't reveal all, but it's in multiples of thousands of pounds.
It can run away with us. It has to be said. It can run away with us. There's a bit of an in-joke. Years ago, Alan said, you design it and we'll make it.
Yeah.
And as with like the FTP is a perfect example of that. We designed it and they made it, so...
Yeah, and if it costs multiples of thousands of pounds to get that button sorted, I can just imagine the robust conversations you must have.
Yeah, there are times when it does get fairly...
Yeah, to go through an entire FTP's worth.
Yeah.
Right, I think what shows up the Air Arms policy of rolling development best in microcosm is the trigger. What I would like to show the viewers is how it works in practice, and the best way I can think of is to show them 10 years worth of rolling development in the form of the original trigger unit there, the sort of second phase one here, and the current one there. And they look fairly similar. There's obviously some progression here because there are fewer components there. But what most of my readers and viewers won't know is that every single radius, every angle, every pivot point, even the materials that the push pins are made of, everything has to be developed separately and in conjunction with the piece it works off.
Yes.
So if you could total it all, how many hours of development have taken us from that to that?
It's days, if not weeks. It's not hours. It really does add up. The first concept is a few hours talking about it, discussing what the potential weaknesses are.
Yeah.
But once it starts rolling and once the imagination starts going, once you start looking at geometry, once you start looking at material spec, blah blah blah, the list goes on, it can roll into days, if not weeks.
Of just devoted solely to that.
Yeah.
And just in case anybody watching this doesn't get it, this component here is the last physical contact between the shooter and the shot. The trigger authorises every investment that the shooter and the manufacturer and the pellet maker and the scope maker and the mount maker has gone into. That is all authorised by the squeeze of that trigger. That's why they're so important, and that's why companies like Air Arms put days, weeks, months, and in this case 10 years of development into them. They really do merit that.